It's January 2000. Two men walk into an apartment in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. They are not tourists, they are al-Qaeda operatives. And in less than 2 years, they will be inside the United States, preparing for the deadliest terrorist attack in modern history. Here's the twist. American intelligence already knew about them. Their names were on watch list, their movements were flagged, but somehow the system failed. The CIA had one piece of the puzzle. The FBI had another. Other agencies had fragments too. Yet no one put the pieces together until it was too late. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, the world watched in horror as planes struck the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost, and in the aftermath, one haunting question echoed across America and beyond. Did our spies see this coming? The truth is complicated. There were warnings, there were clues, there were even direct reports about al-Qaeda's intentions. But in a web of missed chances, bureaucratic walls, and a tragic failure of imagination, the most powerful intelligence network on Earth couldn't stop 19 men with a plan. In this episode, we're going to dig into those failures, the missed signals, the secret files, and the moments where history might have turned it out very differently. Because to understand 9/11, you have to ask not just what happened on that day, but what happened before it. This is Denzel speaking, and welcome to the world of intrigue. Do not forget to subscribe on the channel and hit the like button for more secrets to get revealed. To understand how 9/11 became possible, we need to go back to the very beginning. In the late 1970s, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The United States saw this as a chance to weaken its Cold War enemy. Through the CIA, America secretly poured money and weapons into Afghanistan, supporting local fighters known as the Mujahideen. These fighters were seen as heroes, standing up to a superpower. Among the men who joined this battle was wealthy young Saudi named Osama bin Laden. He wasn't just fighting, he was also building networks, creating training camps, and attracting foreign volunteers. And while the US never directly funded bin Laden himself, the environment created by the war, the weapons, the resources, the connections helped him grow. Out of these networks, a new organization was born, al-Qaeda. At first, al-Qaeda's main enemy was the Soviet Union, but once the Soviets withdrew, bin Laden turned his eyes toward a bigger target, the United States. In his view, America had troops in the Middle East, was protecting governments he opposed, and was blocking his vision of a global Islamic movement. But the early 1990s, al-Qaeda was no longer a small group in the mountains. It was becoming a global terror network. In 1993, al-Qaeda linked terrorists trying to bring down the World Trade Center by planting a bomb in its underground garage. The attack killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000. The towers survived, but it was a preview of what was coming. In 1998, the group struck again. 2 US embassies, one in Kenya, one in Tanzania, were blown apart by truck bombs, killing over 200 people. The message was clear. Al-Qaeda was organized, it was deadly, and it was willing to hit America anywhere in the whole world. Then, in October 2000, a US Navy destroyer, the USS Cool, was attacked in Yemen. 17 American sailors died. Once again, the warnings were loud. And yet, here's the suspicious part. Despite attack after attack, the American intelligence system was still divided. The CIA focused on threats overseas. The FBI looked at cases inside the United States. The NSA intercepted communications but often kept results tightly guarded. Instead of sharing information, the agencies worked in isolation, and those walls of secrecy left cracks that al-Qaeda was ready to slip through. In January 2000, the CIA attacked something huge. 2 al-Qaeda operatives, Khalid al-Midhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, attended a secret meeting in Kuala Lumpur. The CIA photographed them. They even knew one had a visa for the United States. And here's the chilling detail. Just weeks later, both men flew into Los Angeles. They lived openly in California. They had driver licenses. They took flying lessons, but the FBI had no idea they were in the country because the CIA never passed along the information. Think about that. Two men already tied to al-Qaeda were sitting inside America preparing for an attack while intelligence agencies held pieces of the puzzle and never put them together. By the summer of 2001, the situation grew even stranger. Reports floated in foreign governments warned the US that al-Qaeda was planning something big. One CIA memo even carried the title, Bin Laden determined to strike in US. It warned about hijackings, it warned about possible plots inside America, but the memo was brushed aside as a general chatter. Meanwhile, the public went about daily life. Airports were busy. The Twin Towers stood tall. But inside the shadows, fragments of a nightmare were piling up. Phone calls, travel records, secret meetings, red flags. The pieces were all together, there, but no one connected them. And that's where the story turns deeply suspicious. Was this just a tragic failure of imagination, a system too slow to adapt, or was there something deeper behind the silence? When investigators looked back after 9/11, they found something shocking. The attacks were not a complete surprise. In fact, the warning signs were everywhere. Let's go through the biggest ones, the moments where history might have changed. In January 2000, two future hijackers, Khalid Midhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, attended a secret al-Qaeda meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The CIA was watching. They even photographed the men. More importantly, they discovered that Midhar had a US visa. This was not just any terrorist. This was someone cleared to enter the United States. But here's the failure. The CIA never told the FBI, whose job was to track threats inside the country. For 18 months, these two men lived in America openly while preparing for the attack. They rented apartments, took flying lessons, and even associated with people already under FBI watch. Yet, no one connected the dots. Several hijackers moved in and out of the United States with aides. Some had suspicious travel patterns. Some even used passports with clear signs of forgery. Immigration officers flagged nothing. Visas were handed out with little questioning. One hijacker, Hani Hanjour, applied for a visa in Saudi Arabia. His application was incomplete. He left entire sections blank, but he still got approved. Later, he entered the US and enrolled in a flight school, even though his English was so poor that instructors doubted he could fly a plane. Still, he went unnoticed. In July 2001, an FBI agent in Arizona sent a memo to headquarters. It warned that Middle Eastern men were taking flight lessons, possibly connected to terrorism. The agent suggested checking U.S. flight schools nationwide for suspicious activity, but the memo was ignored. It sat in a pile of papers, lost in the bureaucracy. No one acted. 1 month before the attack in August 2001, a man named Zacharias Missouri was arrested in Minnesota. He was acting strangely at a flight school, asking questions about flying jumbo jets, but not about takeoffs or landings. Alarmed, the flight instructors called the FBI. Agent in Minnesota immediately suspected he might be planning to hijack a plane. They asked Washington for a permission to search his laptop, but headquarters refused, saying the evidence wasn't strong enough. That laptop stayed locked. After 9/11, when it was finally opened, agent found files linking him directly to al-Qaeda. On August 6, 2001, just 5 weeks before the attacks, President George W. Bush received a daily intelligence briefing with the chilling title, Bin Laden determined to strike in the US. The memo warned of hijacking plots. It warned that al-Qaeda operatives might already be inside America. It even mentioned surveillance of federal buildings in New York, yet the report was treated as historical, not urgent. No extra security was ordered. No immediate actions was taken. The memo warned of hijacking plots. It warned that al-Qaeda operatives might already be inside America. It even mentioned surveillance of federal buildings in New York, yet the report was treated as historical, not urgent. No extra security was ordered. No immediate actions were taken. The biggest missed opportunity wasn't just one memo or one suspect. It was the wall between agencies. The CIA held pieces of the puzzle. The FBI had others. The NSA had intercepted phone calls between al-Qaeda leaders, but none of this intelligence was being shared in real time. In one case, FBI agents in New York who were tracking al-Qaeda suspect asked the CIA for help. They were told flatly, "You have no need to know." The culture of secrecy, the rival rise, and the red tape meant that even when the truth was right in front of them, no one was allowed to put it all together. Looking back, investigators said it wasn't a lack of information. It was a failure to connect the information, a failure of imagination, a failure of communication, and a failure of leadership. What makes it even more haunting is that many of these opportunities were not small. They were giant red flags. 2 known al-Qaeda operatives inside the US for over a year. Reports of terrorists taking flight lessons, a suspect arrested with ties of extremists, a memo handed directly to the president. Each one could have stopped the plot. Each one could have changed history, but one by one, they were missed. And as the summer of 2001 turned to September, the stage was set. The hijackers were ready. The intelligence community was blind, and the world was about to change forever. By now, the picture is clear. The clues were there. The warnings were there. So how could the world's most powerful intelligence agencies fail to stop 19 men with box cutters? The answer lies not in one mistake, but in the system itself. First, there were the walls. The CIA was responsible for foreign threats. The FBI focused on crimes inside the United States. Legally and culturally, they operated in separate worlds. Even when the CIA knew terrorists were moving into America, they often refused to share that information, claiming it wasn't their job. On the other side, FBI field agents who spotted red flags were blocked from digging deeper because headquarters feared crossing the line into the CIA territory. These walls weren't just inconvenient, they were deadly. Second, there was rivalry. The CIA and FBI did not just fail to share information, they often competed with each other. Each agency wanted to be the one to solve the case, to claim the success. That meant holding intelligence close instead of opening it up. Imagine 2 doctors treating the same patient but refusing to compare notes. The result was predictable. No one saw the full picture. Third, there was culture. For decades, US intelligence had focused on states, the Soviet Union, China, North Korea. Al-Qaeda did not fit the mold. It wasn't a country. It wasn't an army. It was a shadow network, and many inside the agencies couldn't imagine that such a group could strike so deep inside America. The 9/11 Commission later called this the greatest failure of all, failure of imagination. Fourth, there was the flood of information. Every day, thousands of intelligence reports crossed the desk of messages, warning, rumors, leads. Most were dead ends. Some were genuine. The problem was no one had the tools or the mindset to separate the noise from the signal. As one investigator later said, "We had the dots, we just couldn't connect them." Finally, there was leadership. Before 9/11, counterterrorism was not the top priority in Washington. Politicians were focused on domestic issues or even traditional state threats like Iraq. Resources were thin. Language experts were scarce. Counterterrorism officers were often understaffed. When the alarm started ringing, many decision makers simply did not believe an attack inside the US was possible. All of these created a perfect storm, a divided system, agencies competing instead of cooperating, leaders who did not act fast enough, analysts drawing in information but missing the key patterns. So when the hijackers took their seats on 4 planes that September morning, they weren't ghosts who slept through the cracks. They were visible, they were known, they were hiding in plain sight. And the truth that attack was not unstoppable but allowed by systematic failure is what still haunts the intelligence community to this day. In the days after 9/11, America was in shock, but behind the scenes, leaders know they had to fix the system, and fast. One of the biggest changes was the creation of a new position, the Director of National Intelligence. This office was designed to sit above the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and every other agency, forcing them to share information instead of hiding them. Another major reform was the launch of the National Counter-Terrorism Center, or NCTC. Its job was to take every scrap of intelligence from field agents, from satellites, from foreign partners, and pull it all together in one place. No more silos, no more walls. The FBI also changed. Before 9/11, it was mainly a law enforcement agency. After the attack, it transformed into an intelligence-driven organization focused on preventing terrorism, not just solving crimes after they happened. More resources flowed in, too. Thousands of new agents, better technology, and more money of counter-terrorism. Airport security was overhauled, communication between agencies improved. On paper, the system looked stronger. But here's where things get interesting. Even with all these reforms, many critics say the problems never fully disappeared. Information is still sometimes guarded. Rivalries still exist, and new threats, cyber attacks, lone wolf terrorists raise the same old question. Are we all ready for any kind of this thing that might happen in the future? And then there are the darker threats, the mysteries that keep researchers and journalists digging. For example, the so-called 28 pages, a section of Congress 2002 investigation that was kept classified for years. When it was finally released, it revealed suspicious connection between some of the hijackers and individuals linked to the Saudi government. Was it just a chance? Or was a US ally somehow involved in supporting the plot? Then there's the case of Omar Bayoumi, a Saudi man living in California. Officially, he was just a student, but FBI documents later suggested he might have been connected to Saudi intelligence. Bayoumi helped 2 hijackers settle in America, paying for the rent and guiding them through daily life. For years, officials said it was coincidence, but recently, new evidence has raised fresh doubts. And we cannot forget the story of Able Danger, a secret Pentagon program that reportedly identified several of the hijackers before 9/11, but whose warnings were buried. Was it sloppy record keeping, bureaucracy, or something more deliberate? These unanswered questions keep the 9/11 story alive in the world of espionage. Even with official reports and commissions, the truth remains layered, complex, and for some, suspicious. September 11th wasn't a tragedy that changed the world forever. Nearly 3,000 lives lost, wars launched, entire nations reshaped. But when we pulled back the curtain, the attack was not just about 19 hijackers. It was also about the cracks inside the most powerful intelligence system on Earth. Cracks that allowed a nightmare to slip through. The warning signs was there. The suspects were known. The memos were written. But the system failed to act. Some call it incompetence. Others call it bureaucracy. And some believe the truth is even darker. What we know for certain is this 9/11 wasn't only a story of planes and buildings. It was also a story of spies, secrets, and silence. And here's the question that still matters today. If a similar threat were building right now, hidden in fragments of intelligence, would we see it in the time, or would history repeat itself? This was just one story from the shadow world of espionage, a world of secrets, betrayals, and missed chances that shape the course of history. If you would, if you want to keep uncovering the hide side of global events, make sure you join us for the next episode where we step even deeper into the world of spies. Because in the spy game, nothing is ever as it seems.